United, Know Thyself, Black Power Radio on Oak 93.5. Each and every Sunday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. where we discuss solutions to black communities local and globally. With Brother Escents Divine, Dr. Kimberly Muktarian, and Brother Ausar, Amen. With special guests every week, you can follow Africans United, Know Thyself, Black Power Radio on Facebook.com/Oak 93.5. Or you can engage in conversation by calling 919-899-9305. Once again, each and every Sunday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. right here on Oak 93.5.
Peace to the elders, the ancestral giants. Peace to gods and goddesses past, present, and future. Peace to kings, queens, and royal families all over. And peace to you, brothers and sisters. You tune into Oak 93.5 FM, Africans United, Know Thyself, Black Power Radio, where ancient wisdom meets modern truth. With the Honorable Brother Ausar, Amen.
Anakasar, a BB for Hodier, African liberation, black liberation, African power, black power, for every black man, woman, and child on the planet. We are the original people. I am the original man. I am a son of Africa. Peace to the listening audience.
The Queen, Dr. Kimberly Muktarian.
Good morning, listening audience and across the diaspora. We're just calling on you to tune in. Why? Because we have some great information that is going to liberate us and not alienate us, but bring us all into one unity.
I'm Escents Divine. And in the Shetaut Neter tradition, the proper raising and education of children is one of the most important moral and spiritual responsibilities entrusted to human beings. The teaching is part of a larger body of principles that guide followers to live in harmony with the gods. Shetaut Neter teaches that children are sacred beings. When children are guided in alignment with Maat, truth, justice, and order, they are more likely to grow into virtuous, selfless, and spiritually aware people. This is not only a family responsibility, but a community responsibility as well, because the future of the community depends on the moral development of its youth. So, Dr. Kim, in your opinion, are the government, the community, and the society doing enough to protect our children?
In America, absolutely not. They have failed our children. They've placed the family in survival mode. And once you're in survival mode, it is very difficult for you to focus on establishing values and placing protections around the children that are essential for them to grow into productive adults.
Brother, so.
Can you please repeat the question?
In your estimate, do you think the government, the community, and the society as a whole are doing a good job of protecting our children?
Absolutely not. And I want to make it clear that when we're talking about our children, we're talking about black children. We're talking about African-American children. From the time that, our ancestors, that we were, captured and kidnapped and brought over here and enslaved as a people, not only have the adults been mistreated, but so have the children been mistreated. So the reason why, the government, not only do they just fail and society fail, but they fail intentionally when it comes to black children and black adults, because I don't want to separate the child from the adult, because when the child reaches a certain age, then they'll be a adult, and it just becomes a cycle, a perpetual cycle of being dominated by another people. And I think that that's the one thing that we have to really look at more than anything, is the reason why our children don't have any protection on them, from the government or society or even the family. We can't protect but so much if we're being dominated ourselves. And that's because of the domination of white supremacy, global white supremacy, and that they have the power to put us in a position where we can't defend ourselves. And so it's so important for us to understand that we have to have a quest for power, not only liberation, but power. And once we have power, we'll know that we're liberated. But as long as we don't have power, there's really no protection that's on our children. And that's why these principles that you're speaking on are so valuable and so important, because it helps us to establish power within ourselves, a conscious power, right? Cultural consciousness, which is so important because we're being dominated by another culture in every way, from the education that we receive. And we know what the education system is all about. It's just setting our children up, for prison, the school to prison pipeline. So these are some realities that we really have to look at seriously. And, we have to really take a look, not only externally, but internally at the black professionals, across the board. When you talk about education, when you talk about economics, when you talk about political, right? And as long as we don't have any type of political power or economic power, we're going to be able to be dominated on the social scene.
Okay, so what areas you think are being neglected the most?
As far as what?
Just as far as not getting the proper justice or educations or stuff for the children, or
Well, it has to be looked at holistically. And one thing that, I know we have to, work where we're at locally, and we got to work statewide and national, but we also got to look at the global aspect of things, because we're being dominated globally. And the transatlantic slave trade was a global experience for us, and we're still suffering from it. So areas that we really need to concentrate on is, one, first and foremost, we have to have a cultural revolution as a people, right? To really break the cultural dominance that we suffer from Europeans, right? It's basically what Baba Atmos been teaching me about soft power. The influence of American culture, not only here in the United States, but globally, right? And so once we buy into, the American culture and really don't understand our own culture, and how we have to not only understand what our ancestors left for us, but what's going on today, right? And we have to really study, a lot of our great philosophers, a lot of our great psychologists, historians, on things basically that we have to do that are practical, that's going to help us to understand not only the importance and value of culture, but community, how culture and community work hand in hand, right? In the knowledge of self, how valuable that is to understand our culture and to understand our history. So we have a whole lot of work to do. And, we have to basically, we talk about, building, because we are the original builders on this planet. Mm-hmm. So we really have to have institutions of learning so that we can get together and organize and plan. Like Kwame Ture always say, organize, organize, organize. Organize our thoughts, organize our actions, and work together as a group. Group consciousness was just very, very important for us as a people, right? So distractions. We know that and that's one of the instruments of soft power is distractions. We speak about this all the time, as far as athletics, as far as the entertainment industry and things of that nature.
Right. So basically, we're neglected mostly. Well, we're pushed into a culture that's really not of any type of value for our, for ourselves. Basically, like we push into gun cultures, drug cultures, and things of that nature instead of proper cultures, our traditional cultures, and just getting into that, because I was going to ask why is it important to teach our children culture values and knowledge of self. And I think you just hinted on that, but let me get to some key principles of raising children according to the Shetaut Neter injunctions. Protection and care that provide physical, emotional, and spiritual safety. Moral guidance, instill virtues such as honesty, compassion, and justice. Selfless service, teach children to care for family, community, and humanity. Equality, foster respect for all people regardless of gender or background. Justice and fairness, model and teach families in all dealings. Sharing resources, encourage generosity and cooperation. Then Shetaut Neter, the Sheti, which is a spiritual discipline, includes study of wisdom teachings. The Rek-Ab, devotion to the gods. Uwashu, acting with righteousness, which is Maat, and meditation. Parents are encouraged to model these disciplines in their own lives so children can learn by example. Dr. Kim, what can we do to assist parents in understanding the value of our cultural views, the knowledge of self and community unity?
I believe self care. The community has to focus on self care. And what that means is that those who are strong, the elders, have to give back. I think for so long, being in survival mode, people just leave our families that are already broken to themselves. And there is not enough impact coming from those that are quote unquote educated or socially aware. And so you go months and sometimes years without any kind of connection between those who are healthy when it comes to education and self awareness. We have to make it a priority. And I think what happens is we go to these governmental institutions and we have been trained or conditioned to believe that they are the end all. So we don't give back in the same capacity that allows us to be the community that believes in restoration and wholeness and health. So, if we're going to go back to being a community, we have to go back in and touch and teach and reach and not expect that the government or Wake County, is the only entity who is welcome into our communities to, give back. We have to do more than just talk about it. We have to be about it.
Right. And sharing of the resources, selfless service, the protection of the weak and oppressed. That's I know Brother Ausar mentions that a lot when he get to talking about the Shetis or the Shetaut Neter
Yes.
principles. So,
Yes.
Brother Ausar, you want to add?
Yeah, Shetaut Neter is very important because, as we, shared on this program before, Shetaut is dealing with the secrets, the hidden mysteries, right, of the universe. And, the Neter is dealing with nature, the cosmic forces, creation, and the creator. So when we're talking about Shetaut Neter, we're talking about divine principles that our ancestors left for us to help guide us throughout life, things that we ought to do, right? And basically, very high principles, like the sharing of the resources for one, right? Because in Africa, we have everything in abundance, but, instead of being able to share, we've been basically invaded and they've exploited and basically, just taking over the resources. And yet, basically, they say that we're in debt as Africans, with the IMF and things of that nature. So, the sharing of the resources is very important, just like the protection of the weak and oppressed. But the first Shetaut Neter enjoins the main purpose of life is the great awakening, to know thyself. And it's number one for a reason, right? Because to know thyself is to know the universe, to know the creator, right? To know nature, to know our brothers and sisters, to become in harmony, to stand on the foundation of Maat, truth, justice, and righteousness, right? And the second one, Shetaut Neter enjoins Sheti. Spiritual investigation is the highest endeavor in life. And that's basically what you just shared with us when you was talking about the wisdom teachings, right? And how the wisdom teachings is a discipline that helps us with the intellect and helps us with reason, which is so important. And then we got the discipline of meditation, right? Which helps us with the focus and helps us with the will. It helps us to organize our thoughts, right? And we have righteous action, which is Maat, right? The things that we do on a daily basis. And then we have devotional love, which is so important because it's teaching us to love all. The
That's
creator, creation, nature, one another, humanity, right? So these are some very high principles. And the proper raising and education of the children is number 13, right? Which is so important because the proper raising and education of the children, what that does, it ensures that our future generations are going to receive the right guidance and the right teachings, the wisdom teachings to guide them throughout life. But now we don't stay stuck with just the ancient teachings, though, right? Because we got to understand where we are today.
That's right.
In the
That's
current,
true.
right? But what we do is we understand that these principles, we don't compromise on them because these principles are written in stone literally. And we live by them principles, but we always add on because things happen throughout the course of life where we have to be able to use our intelligence and be creative, right, to be able to not only move forward but also understand how are we going to protect ourselves from an open enemy, right? And this is really about the first time I even mentioned our open enemy because the main focus is on our development first and foremost so that we learn how to protect ourselves from the enemy. Because once you learn the knowledge of self, you start learning things throughout history and you understand those who have done harm to us and what we have to do to protect ourselves, protect our children, and to protect, our biological existence. And I was studying Dr. Amos Wilson, one of our great, psychologists. And he was basically saying education, right? The purpose of education is first and foremost to be able to protect your biological existence, your people, from any type of genocide or being wiped off this planet because it has happened. So that's a reality that we have to deal with, right? And that's one purpose of education. Just like Dr. John Henry Clark
Hold
said.
on, Brother Kevin. Brother Kevin, you're going too fast. Brother Kevin, I'm going to have to slow you down. Because, I am almost in tears over here. Because I'm an educator. And to hear this brother give us the definition of what education is supposed to be. Education, I hear you say, is by itself is a form of protection.
Yes, indeed.
That is powerful when you have a country whose job has become distorting education, which also means that their job is to uncover and unprotect our people. And I don't want to cut you too hard into this, but I don't know if you all just saw the recent legislation that was passed last week on DEI, how they totally eliminated DEI completely out of K through 12, but also your college and your higher level of institutions. And any form of institution here in the state of North Carolina that you can't mention anything. And then they gave 12 steps as to what was associated with DEI, that if you said any of those things, they violated. And it's so sad because they are the first violators of what they're saying.
Right.
And then they tell you not to do it. So it's very diabolical. It's very twisted, and it comes from a mental health. And I think if we're going to talk about education as it relates to this country, we have to deal with the mental health of those who are given the education. Okay, Brother Kevin, go ahead on because you almost lit a fire over here.
Yeah, the second thing I want to say was Dr. John Henry Clark said the purpose of education is to be able to attain and maintain power, right? And that's another thing that Dr. Amos Wilson always talked about, power. And then we got who was it? Kwame Ture, who also said that education, right? One of the main purposes of education is to help to alleviate the pain of the suffering, right? So here we have three of our great revolutionaries, giving us, their version of why education is so powerful and how education has to be to protect us biologically, to be able to attain and maintain power and to alleviate the pain of the suffering, which goes with Shetaut Neter and joins the protection of the weak and oppressed.
Mm-hmm. So, like Shetaut Neter, the Shetis, all these principles, they're not in the forefront for people to see or to really know or get. So, like, what are some of the obstacles that's keeping the parents from learning this type of or embracing these values?
The Shetties are spiritual disciplines, right?
Right.
To help us to gain the knowledge of self. A lot of the barriers are one, soft power, basically, which is dealing with the American culture, United States,
That's right.
and their influence on not only the citizens here in the United States, but globally, right? So, even when we think that something is our culture, it really isn't, like hip hop for one, right? And it's funny how I was, studying this morning, I was hearing about how, out of everybody who buy hip hop, that we buy less music than anyone. They say it's the Europeans, the Asians, the Hispanics buy more hip hop than anything. So, it's a cultural thing that we have to really understand, a cultural revolution where we had to, and this is one of the things also I've been studying, Dr. Malana Karenga, right, and his philosophy of Kawita. And he's talking about how we have to, rescue and, reconstruct our culture, right?
That's
Because,
right.
a lot of things that we have accepted to be, like they say, gang culture. When you hear gang culture, you think about black gangs a lot of times, right? That's not our culture.
No.
Because that's something that's dealing on a lower consciousness.
That's right.
Like a lower level of thinking, right? And we need to have a higher consciousness, right? And that's very destructive in our community, because this is something that, unfortunately, our young brothers and sisters picked up, right? And that's why, we had to be taught and we had to be instructed, right? And our ancestors, just like within this Shetaut Neter and the principles that they laid out, these are divine instructions to help guide us through life, right? So a lot of the barriers are just basically the soft power, right? The entertainment, the distractions, the music, the series that they show on Netflix, just anything basically to keep our minds from understanding, what's going to really be valuable to us. But that's our responsibility.
That's right.
Right? Because, and I've mentioned this before, we really just coming out of being enslaved as a people. You know what I mean? It ain't even been 200 years,
That's
right? And we were enslaved for over 300 some years, close to 400 years. That's a long time.
Brother Kevin, let me also say
Yes.
that I think people also have taken the definition of slavery to mean a point in time. But slavery is a mindset. So anytime that we see, if we took the basis of what you said as, I think you said John Henry Clark made the definition of what education is. Anytime someone puts a direct assault on that definition, it means they intend to put us back in slavery. That's an assault. That is a war exchange. Anytime I distort or dismantle or even come against the truth of what that definition is, and it puts us back into some form of enslavement,
Yes.
then we have distorted what a definition is. And that means we're also under duress, because if we're forced to go along to get along or even survive, we are no longer to ourselves. And that is one of the things that we have to learn immediately. Anything that opposes our quality of life means that isn't a direct assault on our communities, on our families, on our skin. And when they make legislation that says you can't even talk about slavery, or you can't even talk about the fact that we've oppressed you, or that we had the power to oppress you, because we couldn't, but we have always done it. That is a form of psychological dismemberment. And when you are scattered in your thoughts because you don't even know how to hold your oppressor accountable, he won't even allow you by law to even utter that that he should be held accountable, because he'll tell you what I did to you don't exist, nor can you mention it. That's a form of oppression. And so we don't live on either blacks are going to say we will no longer live up under that rule, while whites are saying we cut away from England, we cut away from Britain. But there has never been a people that says we are cutting away from America. We're cutting away from their ideologies. We're just gonna get dragged all the way down to the altar with whatever this so-called partnership, and we hope we can change the partner as we go. We're very at our own expense, and so sometimes they'll throw us a dog bone. They'll tell us, "Oh, you're so resilient. Oh, you bounce back so well." Maybe they got used to seeing us in the fields get beat and back on the field tomorrow. That is, and that's the sports arena. That's the sport of it. It's how we can psychologically break you and then have you thinking that you still need to be in this relationship. And as humans, we can repair. And I find it very disturbing. Even with the city of Raleigh, all the atrocities that they've done, they'll say, I just received something in my email saying, "Could you tell us how we're doing?" As if they really care. You know how you're doing. You have not paid one dime to the black community for your atrocities, yet you want to know how you're doing. Why? Because it seems the human-like thing to ask. Are you okay? How do you feel? That's a human quality to ask how another human feels or think, with no intentions that if I told you, would you change?
That's right. That's right.
So apologies, that's human to do. But if I told you what you did, what efforts would you put in place in order to actually make the changes that's necessary? So again, we're talking about a very diabolical people who use religion and humanity and the words human. We hear all of these words, but they don't mean anything. Thoughts and prayers. You know how folks get killed and then they go, "Oh, well, we're sending our thoughts and prayers." And I'm thinking, don't send those, because we don't know who you're praying to. We got to be honest. And I hope this 250th anniversary, where they get to celebrate their freedom, we could talk about what freedom we haven't had and make a real true assessment economically, mentally, where are we? You celebrating you, and I'll take it all the way back to 1776, or when Frederick Douglass even challenged them on their July the 4th. He said, what is July 4th to me? Right. So when they come up at 250 years, we should be asking, what does this mean to us? You free, but what does that mean for us? When you still can steal entire communities and then call it gentrification versus wealth theft. Who's going to be accountable? Because, education, like you said, is designed to be a protector in itself.
Yes.
After this 250 July 4th thing they do, we need to come back with the monetary counts of by race of who spent or did what during that time. I would love to see the count on that. Dr. Kim, let me ask you something real quick about when these legislations are passed. How do you get involved in that? For them, the educational legislations and stuff. Like, if we could get if we can put one out there to change the curriculum or something like that. Is that possible?
Well, you can do that now right at your local level. You can go to your local level and challenge curriculum. It gives parents that right. You see that with Moms of Liberty, who challenged which books were going to be on display or even read. You can read your book, or you can challenge whatever the curriculum may be. You can challenge it as a parent. As far as going to legislation, you can change it there with hopefully someone that you voted for, someone who would sponsor what you're saying. But the other issue is certain things are beyond American legislation. I think we as a people here, we understand the importance of the global diaspora. This is not just an American issue. This is a westernized issue. And then here, I think the problem with us here is that we get caught up in classifying ourselves as citizens. So there's a part of us that want to be loyal to America. And anytime you're loyal to something, you don't always disclose how dirty your nation may be. So a lot of stuff we let slide because we don't want to look like we're complaining, or we don't look, but if we hone down and say, as a daughter or a son of Africa, this is a war crime. Remember, if we went back to Hitler and we looked at how they removed certain things from their education, all of the assaults that was done during World War II under Hitler was not always just guns and tanks. It was also banks. It was also other forms of warfare. It was multiple fronts of warfare. And we're getting that same front right here. Propaganda, you name it. The whole, when we talk about hip hop on its face, if we just told the truth about it, we came up in the era where they talked about rap. We talked about what was going on in our communities. Now they've taken that and used that against us. Now they're paying for the pain. But in during Hitler's time, when they got tried at the end of World War II under Nuremberg trials, they tried the ministries of propaganda. They tried everything because it was a whole unified front. It was the music, it was the radio, it was the propaganda, it was the banks, it was all of that. Now America don't play it in our faces to that degree. They isolate certain things. Like, oh, well, this is music. No, it's a collective.
Right. They try to separate each institution from one another.
Right.
When it's all really just functioning under one system.
It's a function under one system. And until we look at it in this degree, we're going to keep getting defeated because they're making us fight these issues in silos versus a collective.
Different battlefronts.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And this is a corporation. This country is a corporation more so than a country. Definitely. So until we understand how to hold this corporation, the fans, the propaganda, the merch, you name it, all of it is under one banner.
Right.
Brother, if I can, because I want to go back to a question you asked about the barriers, right, as far as from, learning the principles of Shetaut Neter amongst our people and really, teaching the children because, and it comes from, unfortunately, a lack of confidence in self.
That's good.
And the reason why we have a lack of confidence in self because we don't have the knowledge of self. That's why the knowledge of self is so important because then you learn not only are we the original people and the original scientists on this planet, but we also understand that, we've been given a false consciousness and we've been basically, taught things that are not true whatsoever. Like we talk about how they make, us stand up for what? The Pledge of Allegiance. When they say, what, in liberty and justice for all, which is a complete what? Lie. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's a lot of barriers that we face as a people, and soft power is one of the major barriers, and they use the institutions to promote their soft power.
That's right.
Like the educational system. So that's why it's important for us to build our institutions and really just be consistent. That's why we need institutions, because if we got institutions, we can really be consistent. And educating our community, bringing our community together and working together as a community.
Yeah. Another one of soft powers is the music industry. And I want to bring that up real quick because that drive, that's a major driving force in our communities.
Yes.
Is the music. And at one point in time, once it was all about enlightenment, as Dr. Kim was just alluding to, and then they just, once they seen how they can monetize off it, they just totally did away with enlightenment of it, and they pushed the guns, drugs, exploitation parts of it into and have us believing that's really our culture, and that's foul play in my opinion. some practical applications of the Shetaut Neter. Let me go over a few of them real quick, and then we can I get to another question. First, education. Teach both academic and spiritual wisdom, including the Muktarian scriptures and the moral philosophy. Role modeling. Demonstrate Maat in daily life through honesty, kindness, and integrity.
Right.
Community involvement. Participate in community activities that strengthen shared values. Nature and well-being. Protect children's health and their connection to nature.
Right.
So, Brother Saul, what is the reality of the Department of Education having black children and families' best interests?
They don't whatsoever. They have our worst interests at their heart, right? And that's
right.
why we have, so many of our young brothers and sisters incarcerated, mass incarceration, right? Because, it's not an education for liberation. It's an education for incarceration.
That's right.
Right. And what we have to do is we have to make it an education, not only for liberation, but like we spoke on earlier, for our biological existence, right? And basically what they do, and I'm glad that we're going to talk about our biological existence, with basically what happened with the young brother in South Carolina that was shot down, by the Asian store owner, or the 1-year-old boy, that was murdered. So if they can't incarcerate us, they want to murder us. Right. And that's just, the Department of Education has never shown the ability to properly what? Educate black children. That's why number 13 in Shetaut Neter. Shetaut Neter enjoins the proper raising and education of our children. Why is it so hard to educate children? It's not. I'm going to tell you, yesterday, and I got to share this, I had called my daughter. I needed her to pick me up a few items from the store, and she had my grandson, he 10, and one of his good friends, Messiah, with him. They had went skating, and so when they brought me my items up, and knocked on the door, and I opened the door, and I'm talking about the joy on their face, you know what I mean, and the innocence, of these two young, brothers, and they play on the same football team and stuff, and just watching them grow up, and it's such a beautiful thing. And then you think, wow, in 3 or 4 years they're gonna be targeted.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's
That's
why
true.
putting protection on them is so important. And we're going to put protection on our children.
That's right.
Like, we ain't just talking. We're going to get at everybody we need to get at. Department of Education.
That's right.
Right? The
Let's do
judicial
it.
system, Department
Yes.
of Justice. We're going to get at everyone we need to get at. And we're going to stay and talk. And we're going to get at our black professionals.
That's right.
And elected and selected officials.
It's true.
Because they have a responsibility as well.
That's right.
But they're used to put in a place to be able to hide the racism behind the black face. They put a black face on white supremacy.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
That's right. And then they also put them in survival mode because they tell them that even if you're educated, you can't say what is true. And see, anytime you take education and you distort it for your own purposes, then everybody under there is under duress. You begin to teach those things that actually breed cognitive dissonance, which is a form of denying your own conscience. You willfully give up your own truth to survive in white culture. And that is what we see happening today. I want every black teacher, black principal, this is Dr. Kim speaking to you live now. I want you to go get yourself a mental health check.
Right.
Because really, anytime you have to succumb, and I'm challenging Black America, just don't stand there acting like you got it all together and you just gonna take a licking and be quiet. No. You need to pass out just like white females do, who cannot take a licking and keep on ticking. I need you to pass out right there at the public school system because this should be overwhelming your own intellect. This is a direct assault on your own mind for them to tell you that you can't tell the truth about what has happened to our people, and you can't pass that truth on to the children so that they can know what they're supposed to fight against. How can you tell them that what happened to them did not? And if they mention it, then they're going to be reprimanded or their funds be taken. And that is how they set up the structure. If that's not a form of enslavement, I don't know what is. Just because they allow you to go to work for them, but you still have to hold on to their lie. That's not freedom. So, they have us hee-hawing at every event talking about Juneteenth, when half of your institutions are still up under oppression. It's really saying we allow you to teach we just allow you to teach our life for you, and we'll pay you. And that's not freedom.
Yeah. What changes is necessary to truly serve our community?
First of all, we have to decide whether or not we're going to be American. If this is the definition of being American, we might want to take that badge off, just to show us they put the Star of David on Jews or the little yellow sign. We're going to have to maybe disconnect our identity. We're going to have to go back to our true identity as those of the African diaspora, which is the original people. We were placed here. We were placed here. This is not our original home. And so I don't think people want to connect. First of all, you can't be a part of stolen property and stolen land anyway and call yourself blessed. Unless, I don't know if your church is teaching you that, but I'm almost for certain that the Bible says thou shalt not, for those who go to church this morning, thou shalt not steal. So I don't know how God can bless stolen property. Stolen, right. Come on, let's do basic stuff. Now, I know that don't sound right, and so all of our stuff is tied up in a couple of what do you call it, constitutional amendments, and right. Our whole freedom. Come on, I've been on this earth long enough to know that what the Creator embedded in my body functions with or without my help sometimes. I'm a human who's never seen my lungs or my heart, but it works for me. Automatically. Now, why would he subject me, my freedom, to some foolish 14th, 16th amendments that you change and interpret whenever you feel, mushy inside or you get caught? We got to stop being so simple-minded as humans, black folks. Come on, we're bigger than these we're bigger than their constitution. Our existence is bigger than their Declaration of Independence. Our existence is bigger than any document that they can put any act. Most of them, they make something and then they put the something, the Civil Rights Act or something. Yeah, because it's all an act. If I'm going to treat you right, I'm just going to treat you right. I don't need a sheet of paper to go back and refer to that I shouldn't sick dogs and water hoses on you after you paid for the water. Come on, who needs civility? You shouldn't even be able to pick up the water hose if that's what you're going to do. Maybe we should go over civility first before you get the job. Okay, I'm just saying, we this is real education. Mm-hmm. If we're finding this stuff out after you do these atrocities, somebody is not educated. They're barbaric, and they've made their barbarianism legal. Yeah, and that's not education.
Nah, I like that because when you really dive into them amendments from the 13th to the 15th, I believe, right, you really dive into it and pay attention to it. It's they nationalizing you to United States, but it's saying that you don't have a nationality. So when you referring to yourself as African Americans or blah blah blah, however those terms they put on us, then you're still property of whichever state and the United States that you're in. You're the property of them, so that's still
a form of enslavement.
Slaveocracy.
Right. Cute slavery. You've actually adopted being a slave, a willing slave.
Right. And still fighting for your civil rights at that same time. So you're still not a citizen. Brother Saul just mentioned black faces on white supremacy. You mentioned it last week, if I ain't mistaken. Yeah. So Dr. Ken, let me ask you first, and then Brother Saul, you jump right in after. How should we deal with disloyalty to black liberation?
I answered that last week.
Yes, I was going to say, brother, it's not going to hurt for you to answer it this week, Brother Saul.
Swiftly and decisively. Mm-hmm. We can't play no games because it's been taking place too long and it's hurt the movement and it continues to hurt the movement, right? And and really, I got ideas, and visions of things basically that I see, that take place globally amongst African people, amongst, African leadership and amongst, the African community. So it's some things that we have to come, the grips with. And just like in our 10 virtues of initiate, number 10, have the ability to distinguish the real from the unreal, right? We got to stop playing games
That's right.
with our disloyal leadership and members of our community.
That's right.
Because it's hurting us, right? That's why they're able to get away with the things that they're able to get away with, labeling our children. Once
That's
they
right.
label our children, it's all downhill, right? The conspiracy to destroy black boys. I forgot the brother name who basically Jawanza Kunjufu.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Conspiracy to destroy black boys. Why do they want to destroy black boys? Because they don't want the young black boys to grow up to be what? Strong, productive black men
Right. That's
who
right.
can challenge white supremacy and challenge the white man and look them eye to eye, face to face, and go toe to toe with them and defeat them
That's right.
and crush the white supremacy regime, right? And have liberation. And that's what we have to do. And that's why they attack our youth, our children, because they want us to grow and they want our minds to be discombobulated.
Right.
And they want to lock us up, put us in prison, warehouse us, so that our warriors are locked up. That's why it's so important for us to get out here, get in our communities, and put together these institutions, build these institutions of learning, right? Rites of passage programs for the young boys and the young girls. Even for our adults, the knowledge of self is so important, right? Because we have like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught, we have a natural enemy. We have an open enemy, right? And we all know who the open enemy is, right? The white man, the Europeans.
So I think that's one of the principles of initiative, distinguish the real from the unreal.
Yes.
I think it's the last one, number 10.
correct.
Yeah, so
Yeah, that's powerful.
how do we distinguish a disagreement from disloyalty?
Well, and that's why the wisdom teachings are so important.
Yes.
And that's why number 6 in the 10 virtues of initiate, have the ability to act with wisdom, right? You can't only think wisdom, you got to act with wisdom, right? So you're not going to always be able to tell immediately when you're dealing with someone that's disloyal who can betray you, because most of the times it's someone that's real close to you.
Yeah.
Right, and sometimes it be hard to detect, but we have enough, enough examples throughout history that we know to look close to us, right, and how to protect ourselves. And I got to give, the Nation of Islam, a shout out and a lot of credit for being able to put protection on.
Yes.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And unfortunately, when the great Malcolm X left the Nation of Islam, he left his shield of protection.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, just like the other brother, Dr. Khalid Muhammad.
Yes.
When he left, so protection is everything, and to be protected, we have to be organized, right? We have to be organized and understand the value of protection and understand our open enemy and the things that they're going to do, basically to try to, impact us in a negative way.
Well, how do we protect the movement without creating unnecessary division?
What we have to do is not easy, right? Because we see, and I think this is important, right? Because, we always talking about humanity, right? We talk about what the United Nations just said, that the transatlantic slave trade was the gravest crime against humanity. But when we're talking about humanity, I don't think that when I say the outside, those who are not, of African descent, I don't think they really see us as human beings.
That is correct.
To be honest, right? When really it should be the opposite.
That is
Because
correct.
when we talk about humanity, we include everybody because we understand that we're the original people on this planet.
Absolutely.
And everybody comes from us.
Right.
So we include them in humanity, but they don't include us in humanity. Right? So sometimes, even when they talk about how it was in the Constitution that we were 3/5 of a man.
Right.
Right? That right there shows you what they thought about us and how they still think about us. Right? So think about the vote, how the United States voted against the transatlantic slave trade being the gravest crime against humanity because they don't see us as humans, right? In the European countries, they abstain from voting because they don't want to see us. They don't want to admit to our humanity, right? So they want to always look at us as less than because they want to have power and control. To me, it really isn't about reparations the way we think it is. They want to maintain power and control over, first and foremost, Africa and its resources, right? And as long as they can keep our minds and our focus off of the motherland and understanding if we can do like the AES has done, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, and who push the French out, if we can push all of the foreigners out, right, and take control of Africa and its resources, right? Because its resources make trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars a year. But yet, 80% of our brothers and sisters in Africa live up under the poverty rate. It doesn't make any sense, right? As African people, right, as African leaders, African community, we have to get serious and look at the things that have really basically put us on the map as a global world leader. That's why the invasions of Africa continue, because they want to control our minds and they want to dominate us. And they want to keep us fighting with each other like in the Congo and like in the Sudan. That way we won't have our focus on our real enemies.
And it takes the focus off us unifying.
Yes.
Which is their bigger goal, is to make sure that we never come to a place where we actually solidify who we are as a whole. So when we talk about, and all of it's due to their not just seeing us as less than or as humans, but that's a self-reflection.
Right.
Technically, really, that's how they see themselves.
Right.
And then they project it on other people. And I think that's the small loop of the bigger whole, is that they're actually projecting their inner thoughts about us as to how they really see themselves. Because everything that we do, they mimic. So why is it that you hate who we are, but at every chance you're trying to steal who we are? We use words like cultural appropriations and certain things that we do naturally. We don't have to practice in no dance hall. We don't have to.
Right.
It's just, those are things that who we are as a people. And we see the westernized world, and even if we didn't talk about arts, we could talk about just intellectual items. As the original people, we did astronomy, we did medicine, we did all of these things. There is nothing that we have not put on this earth that humanity has not benefited from as a whole. Mm-hmm. And we never kept that from anybody. You see traces of our history giving this knowledge away because we knew it was for all humanity.
Right.
Why? Because we saw them as humans that need it. That is what the Black Panthers movie, the first one, was centered around. Is that, do we keep these wonderful goods to ourselves, or do we give them away? Of course, we give them away because we got plenty. Now, maybe you come from, you probably left motherland and went to scarce places, cold places, one polar bear versus many gazelles. That don't have anything to do. So now you have to develop a survival mentality. And now you take that survival mentality and you try to apply it to everybody else because of your fear of scarcity. That's never been our fear. We've always had plenty. That is why we saw the economic shift from your injustice, that we could be standing on gold and not partake in our own resources. Something is wrong. That is diabolical. And that was deliberate from a people who've been deprived, not just by resources, but mentally. Because eventually that's what happens. When you start depriving people of resources, it affects you mentally. And we're seeing that happen. That's what the onslaught of imperialism is.
That's right.
That
right.
is the basis of imperialism. And we have to say, okay, enough. Because now it's more like you throwing a temper tantrum at decisions you made. And we shouldn't have to pay for it anymore. So when we celebrate 250 years with them on July the 4th, it'll be because we're sitting them down to have this discussion. Now, you got to stop, with the children. We're going to have to talk to our children. Yeah. This is what we're going to have to do. Because we're not doing another year like this. We don't owe you that.
That's right.
That's right right there. Well, that's a lot said right there. In essence, Shetaut Neter views the proper raising of children as a sacred duty that combines spiritual discipline, moral instruction, and community responsibility. It is a lifelong commitment that prepares the next generation to live in harmony with the Nebajers, the supreme being, and the order of Maat. We've seen many cases in which our children wasn't protected by the people and institutions responsible for their safety, such as Carmelo Anthony, a young man who was sentenced to 35 years in imprisonment after defending himself. Cyrus Belton, a 14-year-old who was run down and shot in the back after being falsely accused of theft. That store owner, I think, Rick Charles,
Right.
he was found not guilty. Cohen, if I say his name properly, Cohen Wiley was a 1-year-old, and he was shot and killed by police officers at a Walmart in Mississippi. They accused his mother of stealing diapers or Pampers, and she could provide a receipt that they was paid for.
Right.
So, Dr. Kim, how can we prevent these instances from continuing to happen?
Well, it's the narrative that we're actually fighting against, because technically, if everybody is proven to be innocent,
Right.
then we're fighting against a narrative that says they look at us as criminals first before they even do an investigation. Obviously, if this young woman was stealing Pampers, no one, and you have cameras, you have employees who supposedly you didn't see that she had a baby with her when she came. So, but that is null and void when it comes to pursuing her over stolen Pampers. Is that you now just alleviate that she has a baby in the car, which means that you look more to minimize the innocence of who we are, our humanity, so you have rights to shoot. Again, the only way that you could really fix this is if we were human enough in your eyes to pay reparations, because Cyrus Belton, he wouldn't have to steal your orange juice or your water. How many years ago was it when our beloved 15-year-old young girl in another Chinese store, California, 1995, shot in the back over orange juice. And so here we are, same scenario. From here to there, we still haven't gotten any, because reparations is a form of respect for the people that you robbed. It's a form of restitution. So you're going to keep killing us because you won't pay us back, but you'll keep killing us under the premise that we robbed you. And so we haven't demanded that. We're going to demand justice for these young people, but never demand reparations. Because if a people are repaired and repaid, then what do we need to steal for? The premise is gone. The very thought that when you look at me, oh, she couldn't have it because we just gave her $1 million. Why would she? See, we're fighting the wrong fight because we're too scared to demand what is really ours. As a matter of fact, not only will she not have to steal for you, 9 times out of 10, she'll have her own store. Could you imagine us thinking that far in advance?
Yeah.
We'll invest in our own orange juice. Come on. We'll have our communities back. Can we think from a highlighted position versus, we got to defend that she didn't have the orange juice. She did have the orange juice. She didn't have. That is not our issue here, right, of whether or not she had the orange juice or not. And the other issue is your orange juice more important than my life? Or the other issue is, when you came to this community full of broken people, you were okay with us buying your orange juice at double the price. The injustice is there, but you didn't consider that these same broken people could steal from you. You were okay with coming and posting your entire establishment in a community of broken people. You didn't think that through. You know why you didn't have to? Because they had already gave you permission that if we took anything from you, we could gun you down. Yeah. See, these are premises, because nobody would go and you wouldn't go and establish your institution in the middle of a clan country, because you already know that if anything go down, what would be the outcomes? You're not getting justice. These are things that they already know, that if they come to our community, they get to kill us. They get to inflate the rates of milk when they steal WIC. Hey, y'all out there, Raleigh. We're going to talk about these communities that you all have come to in Bitmore Hills and Halifax Court and Martin Street, where you set up your little stores in our communities. And I'll get even specific. The very store that where my son was shot at, he said he reached out to open the door, but they had locked the door so that he could not get in, and that is where he passed out at. So there is no protections for us. They want the money, they want the funds, they want the appropriations, but they could care less about protecting us. And that is what's lacking. The self-respect, the human respect is gone when it comes to the interaction of human investment between us and the rest of the community.
I'll make an argument that it was never there. Because you could go all the way back to, you can go Emmett Till. I was watching something this earlier, 1944. Oh, the first electrocution. George
Steiny.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
South Carolina.
Right.
They
14-year-old. Right. So, we can make the argument that they never, it's nothing new. It's nothing new. It's been going on since forever now. Brother Saw, you want to weigh in?
Yes. First I want to say this, right, is that the system, the government, they love when we react in an emotional way, because it's natural to react in an emotional way when we lose one of our babies.
It's true.
The young brother, Cyrus Carmack Belton, that was shot down 3 years ago, by the Asian store owner, right? And they know that, first of all, foremost, he didn't steal anything. And second, he was running away. They was chasing him. So to be running away and to be ran down and shot in the back, and then to say that it was self-defense, right? It's obvious. It's no justice. So we can never really expect justice from a corrupt government that practices injustice, right? That's why we have to put the protection on ourselves, right? And we should be further along than when we are, but we're not, because when Trayvon Martin got killed, it was just for a moment that everybody was upset. Tamir Rice, Michael Brown, and we can go on and on. Breonna Taylor, we can go on and on and on and on. And this is a problem, because we're the only ones who are getting gunned down and murdered in the street.
That's right.
And in the Carmelo Anthony case, where the young brother was really defending himself against two twin brothers, that was bullying him and attacked him first, they find him guilty of first-degree murder and give him 35 years. Right? And they want us to be upset about it, because the one thing they want to always maintain is control and power over black people, right? So they love when we get angry. They love when they practice the injustice, because they want to show us, as long as y'all in this country, we're going to have control over y'all and we're going to dominate. And that's where we have to come in as conscious brothers and sisters, as conscious agents for our communities, right? To stand up for our communities and make sure that we get the proper knowledge and put people in the proper position to be able to basically protect us. It's all of our responsibilities. And that's one of Shetaut principle, Shetaut Neter enjoins, it is the responsibility of every human being to promote order and truth. But what we want to do is we want to talk about our brothers and sisters in the black community, the African community. It is our responsibility to put protection on our children so that these things don't happen. So always remember, right? It's just like when they talk about the literacy scores amongst our youth. They love when they can report on the low scores because that lets them know how effective their system of oppression is against black people. Just like when they murder one of our young people or old people in the streets, they know what type of reaction we're going to get, right? Because we are compassionate people, right? And we react in a way where we want to get in the streets and we want to do this. But the most important thing for us to do is understand that these atrocities and injustices take place each and every day. We just don't hear about it.
That's true.
So we have to be on point each and every day in the fight for liberation, right? In the fight against oppression, the fight against exploitation, the fight against institutional and systemic racism. We have to crush the white supremacist regime with black power and understand the need for black power, right? Which is black consciousness, which is a high level of consciousness that unites us and puts protection on our children, which is our future generations. Because if they can continue to label our children, give them psychotropic drugs that mess up the mind,
That's true.
and incarcerate them, they're destroying our future. So we have to take this very seriously. And I've said this on this program before, that KCSSU, right? I came up with the idea while I was in federal prison incarcerated. When I kept seeing young brothers, 18, 19, 20 years old, come in with a whole lot of time.
Yes, they do.
And I was like, wow, we got to put a stop to this.
It's true.
All these young brothers who can really think, but they just don't basically have their thoughts organized. That's why organization is so important, right? So that we can stop this school to prison pipeline, this music to prison pipeline,
Let's do it.
right? That's taking place, and even in athletics. The young brother from the Detroit Lions, right, who just got in trouble because he's allegedly had some people rob some other people who he thought he robbed him, kidnapped him and everything, got himself in a very bad situation because he's a young brother without the proper guidance. And that's what our people need. We need the proper guidance, the proper teachings, so that we can put the proper protection on ourselves.
You said something, Brother Kevin, when you talked about they look for us to become emotional. And we almost prove them right every time.
Right.
Sad to say, because, some of our outrage may last a couple of months, maybe a couple of years. And to the Cyrus Belton family, we are still with you just
Yes,
as much
indeed.
as Carmela Anthony and Carmela Anthony's family as well. We're with Tamir Rice's family. We're with Trayvon Martin's family. We can't let these issues go because they're not an issue. It's an assault. This is not something that if we deal with this one today, there won't be another one tomorrow. Until we deal with the root of these issues, it's always going to be another child. It's always going to be another family that's suffering because we did not deal with the real root cause.
Right.
And the root cause is we have not made them pay back what is owed. When you make them pay back what is owed, you're making them acknowledge our humanity. See, we pay our bills because we respect due power. We pay because we respect, whether we like them or not.
Right.
We respect. And really, Black America is still trying to get America to like them, not respect them. And so
That's really good, yeah.
we still trying to get America to like us versus respect us. Reparations has nothing to do with whether you like me or not. This is about whether you respect. So when you see this child running away, and see, that's the same scenario, and let's flip this for a moment. If RPD see a white child doing the same things that they see a black child doing, would our black officers gun him down in the back? No, because they respect. They have put something on their name that says there's a value that you better not touch, whether he's right or he's wrong. They just, have you noticed that they always seem to live. Because that's about respect of life. That person gunned down 9 people at church, Dylan Roof at South Carolina's church. And they just didn't arrest him. They gave him a cheeseburger. See, we're not talking about, come on. We're not just talking about letting him live. We're saying not only are we going to let him live, but we're going to add a tip. We're going to put cherry on the top to say that he's worth something to us. And our kids go kill somebody. We all shame them. Look at Pookie and Mel and them that they done shot somebody, and we're going to ban them to hell. But when Kyle Rittenhouse had the biggest gun, 19 years old, I believe, walking down the middle, killing Black Lives Matter protesters, they didn't even ask him, young man, what you doing with that gun? Could you imagine a black young man walking down, a 19-year-old walking down the middle of a street with a gun bigger than the police and not being confronted? And then they gave him a water bottle. The police gave him, when he's shooting, they hands him off a water bottle. So it's not just saying you're valuable. Oh, no, this is an injustice. This is saying you are valuable whether you are violating humanity or not. Yeah. And see, we have to get to that place where we say, don't bother our folks. Don't bother them. Because we have such a high value on them that you're not even worthy. And that's their other way of telling us we're not worthy of convicting Kyle Rittenhouse. Mm-hmm. You're not worthy. Because we're going to add to his atrocities by joining in with him.
Right.
Now, did the attorney being Crump, is he taking the Cohen Wiley case, the 1-year-old baby?
I have not heard. I do know he has what I'm hearing, and I don't know how true it is, but I believe what I am hearing is that on the Carmela Anthony case, there's an attorney that's associated with him that is on the new appeals team. But I haven't heard anything for the Cohen Wiley case.
And I want to bring it closer to home right quick, right? In the incident that took place about 2.5 years ago at the Weebobs.
Yes.
What was the brother's name?
Daryl Williams. Daryl Tyree Williams.
How many officers killed him?
5.
5 officers.
They would have had 5 body cameras, but of course it was multiple.
And what happened in that case?
Nothing. Actually, on his death certificate it says homicide.
A license to kill black people.
That seems like that's out. Our outs every time is psychotropic drugs, incarceration, or assassination.
Yeah,
right.
It's a big problem, and that's why, at the meeting that we was at last month at Lions Park, when the black elderly lady said, "Can we shoot the perpetrators?" and they was talking about black
children,
African American elementary age children from the ages of 6 to 12 years old.
Right.
And I raised my hand and I addressed it because I said I don't think that's punishable by death, which y'all accusing them of doing, which I don't think they was doing, which is throwing rocks. And I was genuinely concerned, right? And we put together a letter. Me, shout out to Linda Darton,
yes.
Me, Linda, and my brother Dwayne Bobby. Shout out to Dwayne. And we sent it to the police chief, and we sent it to the city councilman that was at that meeting, Corey Branch, talking about what was said. And when you look at baby Cohen Wiley getting shot, 1 year old by the police, right? And when you look at young brother Cyrus Carmack Belton getting shot in the back, you can see the concern, why I was concerned. Because she's asking a police captain and city councilman and the members of the Wake County juvenile court there, can they shoot children? Of course you can't shoot children. But see, this is the mindset and the mentality of this country. And unfortunately, once some of our brothers and sisters consider themselves making it out what they consider to be the hood, even though it's the same community, the same neighborhood, they start to take on the mindset of our open enemies.
That's right.
And think it's open season on a black child, which is self-hatred.
It is.
And I couldn't believe it. So we're dealing with a mentality because like we always say on the show, Steve Biko, the most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. That's why what we have to do is we have to have a mindset shift in our consciousness and understanding who we are as a people.
Absolutely. That's right. And until we dive deep enough to indict this country on the entire thing. See, we want to fix it in parts, and we want to fix it in a way where it doesn't indicate that, white supremacy rule. Because remember now, if you really came at it the way we were supposed to, it would flatline this country. They wouldn't be able to operate because no one runs a business where you are always the only way that you make money is if you turn into the mafia and everybody else is suppressed. Right. In the regular business world, they have laws for that.
Right.
It's called
racketeering.
It's called racketeering, right? If in the regular world, if this happened, you would have so many laws and acts and whiskey act. They had every law known to man just to make sure that someone didn't have the upper advantage. But when it comes to African Americans, they've dressed it in such a way that they can have all of the fancies while just dragging us along. And instead of us saying, excuse me, this is a violation of your own law. But we dare not say that because we still want to be accepted. And you can't be accepted if you're complaining. That was the sins of integration.
Yes, so.
That was the sins of integration, because now that you said you specifically wanted to be a part, and you're going to take the abuse, you can no longer complain. And so now we have this culture that says if you say anything that you're actually in more violation than if you were not. So when our beatings were open to the public, our beatings were open to the public during the civil rights age. Lynchings, those things were public, but now our bruises are more internal. They're not with the dogs and the water hoses that show the blatant injustice. Now it's your suspension rate, where the kids go behind closed doors. Now it's your incarceration rate. Now it's your low income. And so instead of saying injustice on housing, we call it affordable housing. Now, they've learned how to finesse the language. Not say this is an injustice. And I'm going to tell you, this 250th year, we coming strong. We're going to say, you take your terms and labels back. You make the playing field correct. You repay what you owe. And then we'll go from there. But no, you can't label our children as economically disadvantaged when you stole entire communities. So because those labels and those spellbound words attach themselves to our minds, and instead of asking for justice, we start asking for subsidies. No.
That's a great point right there.
If I can go back, I want to go back to something basically that you asked earlier, brother. And that was about those who are disloyal and those who betray.
Touch on it, brother.
The movement. I think it's very important because I think sometimes we underestimate the impact, the negative impact that the disloyalty and betrayal has on us as a people, and just the simple basic things, like food safety, food security.
That's right.
Housing security, like what Dr. Kimberly just talking about, what they consider to be affordable housing. Yeah. Healthcare, the healthcare system.
That's right.
Right, mental health. I just and when I look at a lot of our black professionals, elected officials, selected officials that's in positions to help that betray the community and betray the people, and then they say that they just doing their job. We really need to look a little bit deeper than that, because
that's right.
The Europeans couldn't do it without the help of black people, right?
That's right.
And stuff. We play a part in our own oppression because of a lack of knowledge of self, and sometimes people just choose to take the other side. Sometimes people just choose to be on the side of the enemy, like Clarence Thomas, regardless of how much it hurts our people. And that's why, you asked the question last week, how do we deal with those who betray us? We have to basically separate ourselves. We got to cut ties a lot of times, right? Even, with KCSSU over the years, people who supported us in the past stopped supporting us, wanting to be seen with us because we're sticking up for black people. We're sticking up for black liberation, for black power, for the advancement of black power. right? The advancement of black people. Remember at that meeting how when I stood up for them black children, how not only did the white people want to get me, but the black people in
They
the
sure
officers.
did.
Just
Yes.
for sticking up for black
That is
children.
correct.
And saying, look here, y'all are criminalizing elementary age children,
That's right.
right?
Right.
They're after our babies, right?
Right.
And yet, everybody was mad at me for sticking up for our children, right? We have to support our children, and we can't be fearful. We can't be scared, right? And I'm not blaming all of our professionals, because we have some great, outstanding African-American professionals who do everything that they can to help our children, but they know they're up against what? A system of oppression
That is correct.
and exploitation, right?
That is correct.
So what we have to do is we got to crush this system.
Crush it.
If we're gonna be here in this country, we can't allow them to continue to do the same things that they've been doing to us for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. The same arguments that we're making today is the same argument that Marcus Garvey was making 100 years ago.
The first people to scream and say something at that meeting was the black people when you spoke up for the children out there.
Oh yeah.
Right.
They
Because
were
they
the
don't
first
want
ones.
to. They want to make it appear that they're not biased towards their own, biased for. Like they don't want to show white supremacy that they have a right to stick up for their own people.
Right.
And that's training. That's conditioning
Yeah.
from white people that says you better not speak up for your own. I mean, you think about those who were lynched. There were black people in the woods watching that lynching, but they dare not address. They better not have identified. Remember now, I've always been fascinated with lynchings because I remember our yearbooks having names by our faces. And you would go in your yearbook and you would say, you would say something about that person, like nice or, funny or what have you. I have never seen a lynching picture in all my life have a name of anybody in the picture. No one has ever dared identify one person in a lynching picture. Because what they're saying is you better not ever identify a person. In all of America, no one has ever put up there my granddaddy or Mr. Jones, because America has taught that you cannot identify what is wrong, even when it's blatant.
Can't complain since integration.
You cannot complain since integration.
Yeah.
You cannot identify. You got to remember, this comes back from a system that says that even if you were a slave, if you were beat, you couldn't tell on your master. If you were raped, you couldn't say that you were raped. We understand that. So what's the problem now? And then when we complain, we have to go through an EEOC procedure that is so quiet and quaint that you don't even know the person was done any injustice. So they've practically taught you. And that is what we see in the Kamala Anthony case, is that we see two young boys telling this black boy, or more than two, what I'm hearing,
Yes.
that you got to leave this you got to leave this tent. And then if you don't, we physically remove you.
Yeah.
Right. And then we physically remove you, but you're not supposed to do anything back. You're going to match us with whatever we gave you. You're going to attempt to match it with your fists against 2 or 3, whomever, a mob of kids. But had the tables been turned, and this child was a was a white child defending himself against two black guys, he would have been looked at as a hero who fought his way through. He would have been looked at as somebody who made the escape, and now he's safe. And because the narrative belongs to the system, to white supremacy, because we never changed the narrative. When they forced us into integration, we also adopted the narratives.
Right.
I can't remember the kid name, but it was a couple years in Texas. Also, it was a couple years before Carmelo Anthony case, where a kid stabbed a white kid stabbed. I think he wasn't a black kid, but it was a Hispanic kid. Or something, stabbed him to death. But in that case, white kid invited the other one to the restroom
Right.
for a fight.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah,
I read
and
about that recently.
He pulled out his knife and stabbed him to death, but he only gets 10 years because they only charge him with aggravated manslaughter, if I ain't mistaken.
Sure.
And then in the Carmelo Anthony case, you're talking about 3 or 4 kids got him headlocked and grabbed up or whatever, and he just trying to get his way, defending himself to get his way from out of there.
Right.
And he's charged with first-degree murder.
Right.
So
I think
we
we-
had to differentiate. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think we should look at the state too. Texas.
Of course.
Right.
Of course.
And because they just had a big Juneteenth celebration.
Right.
And they were the last ones to so-called
Release the
release
slaves.
yeah. So you're dealing with a racist state first and foremost. And you're dealing with a ideology that they want to maintain. They don't want that. It's going and like Dr. Kim said, we with Carmelo Anthony all the way, right? And, from my understanding, his family was given some very bad advice, to stay away from certain type of people that could help, the family out. But now, in the appeals, they're going to have to tighten up, with the support because it's going to be quite a fight. And it's a fight that he can eventually win. But it's going to take, some real high-powered attorneys who can dig into the law, right? The same way Johnny Cochran stood up for O.J. Simpson.
Yeah.
It's going to take that type of courage and intelligence. And I don't think too many people have that to challenge a system because, when we're looking at the attorneys, right, who's taking an oath, they had to pass the bar. They're not really going to go against the system like that because they don't have the heart to do it, right? So, because really he should have had that type of representation to
From the
start
beginning.
with, from the beginning, right? But once he was found guilty, now everybody is rallying when we should have been rallying, in the beginning with some of our brightest minds to challenge illegal system. Because the system isn't legal whatsoever.
Let me ask you this, Brother Kevin, and I hear you well when we talk about now we take up this cause and this banner after this young man has been convicted for 35 years. The question is that enough? Or do we now go above and beyond so that our children are not subjected to that type of stereotype from the beginning? I think what happens is we rest. And that's where they get us. It's because we make it about a case and not a culture. We never attack the culture of white supremacy. Because if not, long after he is home or sentenced or what have you, we would have been, it continues. Because we never address the true culture of America's justice that says, we should be saying there is no justice.
It's no justice.
Now, I would gaslight. I don't believe in gaslighting, but I would start right there and I would say, excuse me, there is no justice in America. Oh, we got justice because they let him out today. No. We should be asking for much higher. There is no justice when you tell me that January 6 offenders can scale the wall of the Capitol building, be responsible for 5 murders, and be let out within 4 years. Right. Everybody not just let out, but pardoned as if they never did anything. And somebody make a sludge fund of $1.8 billion to celebrate. So you can't tell me there's justice if he's facing 35, but they facing how to make claim on 1.8.
Justice, it differentiate.
Well, then there is no justice, and that's where we should be starting. There is no justice. Not, he got out and we're so glad. No. There is no justice because we're looking at the comparison of what justice looks like for somebody else.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
If I ain't mistaken, I think it was Dr. Umar Johnson who said, we rebel out of anger instead of organizing and revolutionizing out of love for ourselves.
It's true.
For our people.
It's so true. Right, because it's continual. And something they've taught us that if we're going to be successful, we have to include them. We got to let them know. We got to check off the box. We all got to be kumbaya together, blah, 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 blah. No. We're going to have to rebuild whoever is included. It doesn't matter. We have to rebuild and we have to redefine.
Yes, that's it. That's right. Self-determination.
Yes.
So, what immediate steps should families and communities take when the child is in this particular type of danger, such as Carmelo Anthony?
We got to start real early.
Yes.
We can't even let it get to the point where it's at.
That's right.
And see, and you know, it's our responsibility more than anything. You know, I mean, you know, we have our external challenges, a corrupt system, which, believe it or not, lead to our internal challenges, right? But internally, there are a lot of things that we can do that we have to take responsibility for. We see that they're not going to put any protection on us, right? We see that they want to continue to dominate us and hold power and control over us, right? So what we have to do is, in our consciousness, is understand what we have to do. We have to gain power. We have to gain political power. We have to gain economic power. We have to gain social power. We have to gain world power. Once we gain power, protection is automatic, because then we had the capabilities, the capacity to protect ourselves. But if we don't have no power, what can we do?
It's true.
But be powerless, right? And power starts with our mind, our consciousness,
Right.
understanding, being able to identify, understanding who we are, understanding who our enemy is, understanding that this is not going to be easy. Understand that it took a lot of planning for them to do the thing that they have done to us. Over the last 50 years, the way this country has changed, right? Because when they see us coming up as a people consciously, what did they do? They start what? The crack epidemic,
Yep.
Oh yeah.
right? They start what? The gang culture.
That's right.
The school to prison pipeline,
That's
things basically that's going to impact us in a negative way. When I was coming through school, and I got in trouble in school quite a bit, but it was not no school to prison pipeline.
No.
They weren't trying to send me to prison. They weren't trying to lock me up. Might send me home for a day or put me in ISS.
Right.
But now, like Dr. Kim just said, the whole culture has changed.
Right.
Where they want to criminalize our babies.
That's right.
They criminalized that little 1-year-old boy who got shot,
No.
shooting in a moving car like that.
Right.
And then to try to justify, they're going to continue to try to justify.
Right.
And that's why what Dr. Kim had just said, though, we have to organize and strategize to put protection on ourselves and really destroy this system of oppression.
That is correct.
Because as long as this system continues to exist, it's going to do what it do. That's how it got in the position that it's in right now.
It's true.
It's through oppression, murder, thievery, and any other type of atrocity, you know, that we want to think of.
Well, you know, I think one of the shelters that you all speak of is know thyself.
Yes.
And the problem is that many of us don't know who we are, so then we go along with the lie. And so they'll have us on July the 4th celebrating human traffickers, pedophiles, and
Right.
talking about that's our forefathers. How could that be your forefather? He raped you. That's how you got here, through rape and exploitation. But you use the language forefather as if we're all together. No, there is a crime that has been committed, and you all won't charge him. He can't be a hero. He's a zero. So we have to teach our children that these people should not be honored.
We celebrate that harder than the white people.
Well, listen,
The 4th of July.
we got on
That's
red.
why I said I can't wait to see the monetary discrepancies from each community once it's over.
Right,
Especially
absolutely.
at this 250.
Oh, we should have on black. We should be in sackcloth and ashes. We should have on black, before our creator, to say this was an atrocity. Not red, white, and blue. And while you were saying that the rockets, red glare, the bombs bursting in air, we was locked up.
Right.
We was in chains. That's the reality. Now, I know that sounds festive. I know it looks like a party. Barbecue, we love to eat. Guess what? This is the time that we fast or we cut back. And nobody is teaching those things because that's a spiritual concept. America's about consumption. So you are going against the grain when you say, I want to not partake. I need to clear my mind. So then the next day, Tuesday or whatever day comes, you can't fight nothing because you fat off of lies. You done had a party. And there again is the hip hop culture. They can't preach you no truth because they still partying. Like our whole culture is one big alcohol part. That's not even reality.
Right. That's right.
Where you just, a big party based off of what you look like, what you got on, and all superficial. Nobody's teaching you how to get education. Nobody's teaching you how to have a trade. Nobody's teaching you how to give back to your community. Why do you need $1 million before you start giving back to your community? I'm so tired of this culture of sports and entertainment saying, oh, okay, well, so-and-so is giving back to the community. Well, we give back right here.
Yeah.
We broke and giving back. Like, that's not community to me.
Right.
When you go and get $1 million, now we see you featured in our community. Featured?
Right.
You featured?
Soft power.
Come on.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Where's that strength at daily? Right here in our community. We don't need no fly-by-nights, no drive-by daddies. Where you just slide through, make a cameo appearance, and for one day, and then the city is throwing your name on billboards and stuff. Come on. But the rest of the year, you tearing up our communities. And now we got to wait for RPD to be the daddy because they got $1.8 million this year so that they can have, basketball night. And where's the daddies? Where's the fathers that you locked away and didn't give any form of economic power or employment? Let's go. We don't need no substitute daddies. We don't need no surrogate fathers. We don't need no broken families. Put what you broke back together. Let that be your 250-year goal. Put us back together again. We don't need that.
I got a question. Why do the police department think that black children want them as mentors?
I don't know. And I met the guy. I'm trying to remember his name, Mr. Wallace, if I ain't mistaken.
Right.
Part of the police department that he used to play professional basketball also. I met him at Biltmore Hills Community Center. He was talking about he put the program together or whatnot about the sports.
It's a fake out.
Yeah. I don't think they really like. Some of them might be oblivious to the system, and I'm talking about when I say some, I mean like the black faces supporting white supremacy. Some of them might really just be oblivious to the system. I don't know.
I agree. It's sad to say, Brother Escents, but I totally agree. I think they've dumbed themselves down.
Yeah.
And so dumbing down becomes cultural. It becomes acceptable. It becomes normal. And so they don't see anything wrong with it. So they pass. And remember now, we're not them. So we may see them more as human. We may see the police more human than they see us as human.
Right.
I mean, well, the statistics show when they shoot us, they don't see us as human. They don't know how to stop the taser. They just keep tasing an unarmed man till he dead. That's the case of Darrell Williams. So again, they're fed a narrative. Black police officers are often fed a narrative that they've learned how to digest. We've learned how to digest white supremacy and normalize it. And then we just and because it's well organized, and I think that's the other issue is that they're so sophisticated and organized. You put a uniform on it, you put a badge on it, you put a logo, you put a flag. That's nationalizing. And then before you know it, you flying the flag with them without. You uncover the mask and it's full of dead parasites. Yeah. And let me say this. Shout out to Officer Al, and I don't know, Al White specifically. My father was a park and recreation coach for years, him and my uncle. And we grew up in Washington Terrace. Because we lived in Washington Terrace and my father was a community man, he had Washington Terrace sponsor our park and recreation Little League baseball. My father worked for Hayward Funeral Home. He also had Hayward Funeral Home sponsor a little league baseball team. So when I tell you that I've been in a part of community for a long time, those black businesses funded our uniforms, funded our trophies. And guess who we played? We played Jack Seafood. We played BB&T, Weston House. We played RPD.
Lightning Braves.
Lightning Break. Come on, bro. You know what I'm talking about. And we played RPD, which was ran by the coach Al White. We had no idea on many occasions. He had the uniform on. We paid Mr. White no attention because they were black men positioned in our community. And at the time, our innocence was protected from what they were doing to us. If anything, we didn't know what was going on because we were children. That gap has closed. The families have closed. And now you have a huger population of unmanned children, whereby now the uptick is that officers are addressing our children as adults. And here's the thing. No matter how well we forge together relational, you can never substitute that you owe a people.
Right.
See, they try to make things relational. But if you still go, after you finish coaching them and they're done at 18, you go back into their very communities and it still does not promote a healthy community. You may have built a young man who may stay out of trouble, but that does not say that they are still connected to their community. And I think that is the narrative that is crushing us. Because as long as you get one black person or black man who's doing good, it makes them think, well, am I making any sense, brother? As all they have to do is find a couple good black children that is doing well. Look at what their SAT scores and so forth and so on. But it does not equate to an entire downtown community being able to thrive and change the dynamics of a whole community.
Yes.
Nah, right.
And we settle for that. My son made it to the NBA. Well, what about the rest of the community? Right. And they isolate us and celebrate us individually. The first black somebody. And instead of saying, you can never say that to Mooresville children, right. The first Indian doctor.
The first white person.
Well, you can't say that to the Indian children in Mooresville because half of all of them go to UNC for that. Because it's expected that their whole culture thrive.
Right.
But us, we get caught up in them throwing confetti at one little child. He made an accomplishment. No,
right.
Where's our whole community?
That's right.
But come on, y'all.
That's right. The whole community.
Just sparked the thought to me. After integration, we kind of segregated from each other. I just thought about that because now.
Absolutely. That's what they caused. They caused us to jump in the ocean of people versus when we had each other. Yeah. We had to exchange our goods with each other. We bought and sold from each other. Yeah. We protected each other. Now we're in this big pool of integration, and you wading in the water real hard. Now we have to deliberately go back and buy black. Buy black, y'all. When before, that's all we did anyway, and nobody would take our money.
Because we had to. Right. Unifying and organizing, we got to just really get strong on that, and that will increase our power. And as Brother Ausar was speaking earlier, or you say Dr. John Henry Clark said education should be about informing us about power.
Right, to attain and maintain power. How to use power. How to use power, but to use it, you have to have it. So first, we have to gain it.
Yes. Y'all like to leave any final thoughts for today?
Yes, African liberation, education for liberation. We have to really stop the attack on our children, and it's going to take the responsibility of all of us. And we about to get at the city. We about to get at the county. We about to get at the state. We about to get at everybody so that we can put protection on our children.
Absolutely.
You know, the city of Raleigh, they took down that video.
On the CAC.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but we got it, so we good.
Okay.
Right. It's time for pure truth. Pure truth. Let the truth set. If the truth sets us free, then we can't afford to live a lie. Let's rise up.
True. So as we close today, let us remember that the raising of children is one of the highest responsibilities a people can carry. If we want stronger families, stronger communities, and a stronger future, then we must begin with how we teach, protect, and nurture our children today. We must return to the principles of Maat. We must live as examples. We must speak truthfully, act responsibly, and stand firmly for what is right. And let this conversation serve as a reminder that our children are sacred. They are the future, and their well-being is inseparable from our own. Like Brother Saul said earlier, we got to just remember that the children will grow to be adults.
That's right.
That's right. Absolutely.
May we continue to build, protect, and uplift with wisdom, courage, and unity. Remember, proper education always corrects error. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.